What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis. Welcome into the Wednesday Linc Live. And Josh, what do you know? We have some breaking news. The whole point of this show was to obviously talk to you guys, the fans, break down whatever's happening with the Philadelphia Eagles this week. We're going to talk about how they still have yet to fill out the defensive coaching staff, most notably the inside linebacker coaching position. And then, literally 10 minutes ago, we have breaking news. The Philadelphia Eagles have signed former Titans inside linebacker coach Bobby King, who, if we want one little connection to Philadelphia, did work with, how about one Zach Cunningham in the past when he was in Tennessee. Josh, your initial reaction on this signing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that we were all playing the game of who is he connected to? Who are we going to hire basically connected to Fangio?
Right.
And you saw a lot of the interviews and the potential candidates and everything else like that. But like you mentioned, this is the Wednesday Linc, and normally it's just to kind of catch up on everything, and thus the reason for people seeing the thumbnail change and all the other news, because you get the breaking news of a Bobby King coming to Philly. I don't know. It's an interesting hiring. I'm still trying to, as I think probably most people are, try to synthesize this or meditate on it. It's like, okay, is this going to be a really strong hiring? He does have more experience than DJ Elliott, so I think it's a positive or a promise from, it can't be a whole lot worse. We've said that for a number of different positions and coaches and things like that. But hey, you mentioned it there, Zach Cunningham. It's curious to me too, like, what are the ramifications for Zach Cunningham for this defense? Does that mean because Howie already mentioned, he said, hey, Zach Cunningham played good. He played good for us. I'm okay with Zach Cunningham hanging around, but as long as he's not your best option at linebacker, he can be there for depth. But yes, I am curious to see, at least you have a guy who's been doing it for a while. I think 12 years of coaching experience. So, it'll be interesting. Hasn't coached with Fangio before. I don't think that's a huge knock, but still learning a different scheme, what Fangio wants to do. It might be some, initial growing pains or just something kind of going through that side, but should be good. Yeah,
this is obviously the result of Brian Callahan being signed to be the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans after Vrabel left. He's clearing house and obviously gets rid of Bobby King here. So King, not long for the free agent market, comes over to Philadelphia. As you mentioned, he spent time with the Dallas Cowboys. He's bumped around the league a little bit. Interesting note is that he started off as a defensive line coach and then switched over to linebacker the past 2 seasons with the Tennessee Titans. So maybe you get a little added bonus of an extra mind there for the defensive line, just in the defensive room overall. One guy does not necessarily make a position group. Just because your linebacker coach is good doesn't mean your linebackers are good, or if he's bad doesn't mean that they're bad, or vice versa. What's going to come down in terms of the linebacker play is Fangio's scheme, which is going to be very interesting to see. The Godfather running the scheme, as we talked about last Wednesday during our live show. But really, who are those linebackers going to be? You mentioned Zach Cunningham. What kind of impact does Zach Cunningham have in terms of if he comes back, if he's going to be a starter on this team? Was he bad? No. Was he good? Not necessarily. Nakobe Dean, I think a lot of people like to give him the benefit of the doubt because of the injuries, but you can't trust Nakobe Dean for 17 games going into 2024. There's no way. They need to have 2 at least brand new linebackers. Morrow's going to be gone. They've got to have 2 at least brand new linebackers. One needs to be a draft pick, and one, in my opinion, needs to be a free agent. You can keep Dean, you can keep Cunningham, and have a 4-person battle for 2 positions. That's fine, but depth was an issue this year. You saw it when Nakobe Dean went down, and they're going to need to make sure that's not a problem going into 2024.
Yes, that is definitely the case. To your point, again, it's depth on a number of sides, but certainly from, it's like Nakobe Dean, even in his comments, right? His interview, he's saying like, "Oh, I've never been injured, never missed games before, high school, college, NFL. Like, it's never happened to me. This is the first time in a season where I'm dealing with this." So, to his credit, I guess, yes, we look at that and go, well, okay, it's just one season, but still, it's like from what you've seen and you kind of adding up to this point from last season with TJ Edwards, which, hey, TJ Edwards was phenomenal. So understandably so that Dean doesn't play over him, but this is Howie's guy. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, like, this is really what it feels like Howie's leaning towards. So it's probably going to be Nakobe Dean, regardless of who we might want. I feel like we'll sign someone naturally. Yes. And we'll draft some to get some more additions with depth, but, it'll be interesting because I think it'll be, hey, Eagles defense, certainly from the middle of the field, is going to live and die with Nakobe Dean. That's the way it feels. It's shaping up. And I don't know that that's the best case scenario. Maybe you find someone. I'm hopeful that you get someone possibly with a little extra size too, because Nakobe is, a slight smaller. He's 230, but he's like 5'11". So I don't know. It is definitely going to be crucial to find some depth. I think just for the one part that you said too, I mean, if injuries, you don't plan on Nakobe being healthy, even if he says like, oh, that was kind of a fluke thing. But still, it's even in the pass coverage. I think that Nakobe, in very limited reps that we got to see him, there's liabilities to say the least. So, do you say Zach Cunningham is gonna be the answer to that? I mean, he could be okay to your point, but no, I
Sure.
think you have to make a bigger signing, a bigger splash from that side. So we'll see. We'll see who they
Yeah,
go with.
I think the one problem with Nakobe Dean is everyone has that Tennessee Titans preseason game where he tackled Derrick Henry, or was it a preseason game or was it a regular season game? I don't even remember now. It was 2 years ago. Whenever we played the Titans, was it a
Yes,
preseason
yes.
game?
No, no, no. It was
No,
it
it was
was
a regular season. It was that regular season
late.
one.
It was late in the game.
Yes,
Yeah,
where
we
we
were
smoked him. I
killing
forgot
them.
about
Yeah,
that. We have that all in mind because he got the start and it was like, oh my gosh, look at him fill the hole against Derrick Henry. That means he's fantastic. And in reality,
Him and
when
Christian
he was
Ellis.
on, yeah, and so did Christian Ellis, right? And the reality, I mean, when he's on the football field early on before the injury, he wasn't looking like a star. He didn't look like this far and away best linebacker that we had heard all training camp long, that Nakobe Dean looks fantastic. And so, well, I hope that he can eventually turn into the first round projected player that he was supposed to be, falls to the third round, never really got his foot going in Philadelphia. Like you said, we need to get some more bodies in here, and I'm excited to see what the Eagles are going to do. But if you're just joining us, Bobby King, inside linebacker coach, he is now going to be Philadelphia's inside linebacker coach coming over from the Tennessee Titans. And the staff is... it's about there. I mean, they got the Denver Broncos DB coordinator. They have, Clint Hurtt obviously being your defensive line coach. We're essentially, I mean, there's still some slots on the offensive side of the football as well, but we basically know what the Fangio staff is going to look like, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Howie's going to be able to give Vic Fangio, right? What he's going to be able to actually put on for 11 men at a time, and Fangio then schemes them in the right direction. That's what's really going to come down to it. I think Fangio's going to be fine. But there was a very interesting quote, I forget who it was from, a couple of days ago that said, Fangio's scheme is fine. Got to have players to be able to play in the scheme, and it's like Phil Jackson with a triangle. You got Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol running it. It's like, oh, this is pretty good. You got Scrubs running it. It's not that great. So it's all going to come down to who do you put back there on defense, whether it's corner, safety, linebacker, defensive line, whatever it is. I think that's why you're going to see some pretty crazy stuff happen once the new league year gets started here in early March.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be crazy, and everybody knows. Hey, breaking news, signings, speculation of guys, everything else. We're going to be live as soon as that happens. Y'all know that. Shout out to everybody in the chat too. Everyone hanging out on a Wednesday Linc, breaking Wednesday Linc-ish night. That's always a fun thing to do. But especially, I mean, like this time of year, it's there's unfortunately for us, and a lot of teams, I guess, but there's not a whole lot going on. So at least we have that. But yeah, I'm with you. It's exciting from that standpoint. Also too, it looks like got to give a shout out to quickly. Philly Sports Hustle says, Thomas, congrats on your soon to come marriage. There you go.
Thank you.
We're counting down the days.
We are counting down the days. Yes, Josh is going to be in the wedding. You'll be at that wedding. It'll be absolutely fantastic. Yeah, May 3rd. May 3rd is when it's happening. So we still got a little ways to go. I mentioned on my show today, and some people, miss other shows where I've said it, months ago whenever I got engaged. So people finding that out today, which is absolutely just fine. I'm curious where you're at on all the trade speculation. And really, Patrick Surtain, right? Let's just talk Patrick Surtain. All hypothetical. It's completely, unlikely to happen. But the question that we all want to know, Josh, is if you were Howie Roseman and Denver called you and said, hey, listen, we'll take a first-round draft pick for Patrick Surtain. We'll take, your first this year, additional mid-round pick in 2025, whether it's a fifth or a fourth, whatever it is. That's the asking price. What do you say?
That's a tough question, too. I've been playing all these sorts of hypotheticals. I even saw one that had Josh Sweat thrown in there.
I saw that, too. Yeah.
The Sweat in a first round and like a fifth round for Surtain. I don't know. It's to me, it's the question of the contract, because you're going to have to pay him. So
a lot.
I feel like as much as I would want to say yes, because it's, and I know people are going to, it's so polarizing because half will say he's a ridiculous talent. You got to jump on that. And I agree. He's really good, but it's the ramifications for me of like long-term probably would say no. I don't know. It's so hard to say because again, it's like, okay, first round. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself out of this now that the longer because it's not like a first round top 10 pick, right? So then it's like, well, okay, it's not as an impact player, as much of an impact player. That one's tough. I don't know. I don't like the idea of giving up players. Certainly like a Josh Sweat and everything, or there's been lots of other players insert. I know AJ Brown keeps, people like, oh, hey, we should it's like, okay, come on. We can stop doing the whole giving away players and, people that are not going to be leaving here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with the way the contract is, I don't know. I guess I could be talked into it for something, but it's still, it's kind of a mortgage, the current or I guess the future
Sure.
to hopefully win in the very present, immediate short term. And I don't know. That's where it. I go back and forth on it. So I'm kind of at a loss, but I would say probably if it's just the picks, because I'm not planning on finishing terribly, and then therefore not going to be like a top 10
Right.
pick in that sense. So
Right.
I don't know. What about you? Are you in
Yeah,
that boat or?
I think back to when we traded for A.J. Brown, right during the first round of the NFL draft. And back then, we were talking about how the Eagles don't have a ton of cap space. And that somehow they traded for A.J. Brown and then gave him a $100 million contract. They gave him this massive extension, and Howie made the money work. And so I trust Howie's ability. If there's one thing he does really well, it's restructuring deals, and it's getting very fair contracts. Look at Jalen Hurts' $255 million deal. Highest paid quarterback in the league for like 2 days, and now he's like 5th or 6th and has a very small dead cap hit relative to what other quarterbacks have. So I would trust him to do it. One, I don't think Denver is going to. If I was Denver and you had one foundational piece that I would keep, the one piece on that team would be Patrick Surtain. But there are also rumors that they want to trade up for a quarterback. You go to 2 to get Jaden Daniels or Drake May. You have an additional first from Philadelphia. Things can make sense. But I think that I would do it if Howie could guarantee me that the money wouldn't really screw us over on getting other options, because this defense is not solved if you keep everything the same and then add Patrick Surtain. It's just not. You've got to get multiple pieces. I mean, there needs to be minimum 3 new starters on that defense, and that's not talking about BG and probably Cox both being gone as well, because you're obviously going to have Carter and Jordan Davis as new starters, but in reality, they're already there. You need a brand new linebacker. You've got to get someone to replace Kevin Byard, and Sidney Brown's ACL means it can't be him to start the season, and you got to have a new cornerback. And I know Isaiah Rodgers counts too, but he's a nickel, so he's not a starter if you're in a base defense, whatever. But you've got to get at least 3 new people, and if you don't get 3 new people and you just get 1 in Patrick Surtain, it's not going to look that much better, because they're just going to target the opposite side and whoever Surtain is not covering, and you saw that in Denver this past season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's one of those where you have a lot of holes, so I agree as far as the Surtain. I don't see them trading, though to your point, if they're going to try to go to a quarterback, the best asset they have, the best option probably of, hey, you want to quickly move up there, is just offer a Surtain. So it's a maybe that they could do that in a scenario, but still it's you have so many other areas. I know that Howie can play that game. He's phenomenal at it. You backload the contract, you have the dummy years, all sorts of stuff that he does. I talked about it too of what can he do as far as like Hassan Reddick, right? And make it an extension there, free up some cap space on that side. It's going to be, because it's going to be tough. You have lots of, you have wiggle room of a sense, but at the same time, it's like, okay, Hassan's being paid like what, 17th, 18th, something like that, edge rusher in the NFL, versus where his production is. And he's like near the top. I mean, certainly like the last 4 seasons, I think he's like top 5 in sack totals. So there's a lot to be said for production and the value. Great deal whenever you previously got it. But now it's like, okay, you're having to start to answer some of those questions. So with that in play too, I don't know. It feels like hypothetical would be great, and how he could probably still figure out a way to do it. I just don't know if, I don't know, if you talk about it like the long-term sense, there's other ways, and it feels like how he might go that direction. So I don't know. We'll see. Andrew Trevelli, shout out to him, says, good morning from Korea, guys. My 2 favorite Eagles content creators. Go Birds. There you go. It's
there you go.
9:30 in Korea. 9:30 in the morning.
AM?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We'll talk about a time
Happy
difference
Thursday.
there.
Yeah, happy Thursday. Do you see the super chat from Brandon Martin? He says, you guys hear the 49ers head coach was drunk during media night. I don't think that's actually true. I think he was... He kind of had some odd responses, as did Kyle Shanahan. I saw those videos on Twitter. Yeah, he wasn't drunk during media night. That'd be a much bigger story. Much bigger story.
Yeah. I saw a little bit of it, and I feel like people are. I would be, I guess, but you see some of the interviews. I know some people, some guys are not, but people are giddy at the Super Bowl. Hey, you're there. You have the whole media buzz and everything else. So,
and they're asking the stupidest questions. That media night is basically useless. I mean, it's there to get a couple of clicks here and there, but people are asking Brock Purdy, why he looks like Lee Harvey Oswald. Like, they're asking the stupidest questions of all time. I just think back to Alshon Jeffrey when he was like, I don't care about Justin Timberlake. Like, please stop talking. I wish we could have stayed in Philadelphia and come here on, Saturday morning like they normally do, or Friday night whenever they have a road game. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. And I'll be honest, this is the least hyped Super Bowl I can think of in the past 10 years. I mean, I know we're Eagle fans, and so we don't really care about the Niners, the Chiefs, but for me, the hype seems so low for this one. Am I wrong on that? I feel like the past couple of seasons, you've had some really exciting Super Bowls. It was like, oh, Bengals, Rams, this is going to be great. Eagles, Chiefs was obviously massively hyped, the two best teams in the league. Niners and Chiefs, I don't know if it's the fact that Chiefs have been there too many times, 3 of the last 4, or the Niners are just an annoying football team. I don't know what it is, but I'm so unimpressed and unexcited for this game. And I'm like everyone in my comment section today. I wish we could just have a meteor, strike the middle of the field and nobody wins. Obviously, everyone survives, but nobody wins.
Okay, yes, good for the clarification. I appreciate that. Because I was not sure where you're going.
Very important. Everybody survives.
No injuries, no ill will towards that side. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. I think that all of us are a little bit biased, so maybe that changes a little bit of a perspective to it. But maybe the fact that it's kind of a rematch too. I mean, these teams have already met in the Super Bowl, so you like, oh well, we've seen this kind of before. Dynasties get old. I mean, unless you're a part of it, So the Chiefs side, I understand. Sure. Like it gets old. Hey, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, they're good. They're always good. They're winning. Same. I felt the same way. I think everybody probably felt the same way whenever Brady was doing it with the Patriots. It's like, really, again, like I don't care. Just get someone new. I don't care who it is. Just someone else in the AFC. So, whenever you start seeing that, I could understand from the Chiefs side, and then we know what the 40 whiners are and how we can't stand them.
Can't stand them.
Debo, regardless, we live rent free in his head. He can't help it, even though he says, "Oh, we're not talking about it anymore."
He was asked about Philadelphia. He was provoked. He didn't just,
but he didn't have to spit it there. That way. He says, "We're not rivals because those close games." Okay, really?
Sure.
Do I went back, and this is actually going to be on my show tonight. But I went back and looked because I was like, I'm curious. I know it's close. It is literally 0. The point differential is 0. Since Deebo Samuel's come into the league and we have played the Niners, each team's won 2 games and the point differential is 0. So it's not closer than that. So anyway, Deebo's comment of rivalries have to be close games. It's
and we blew them out just 2 games ago for the NFC title game. Right. Like they blew us out. We blew them out.
We played them in.
I know. It's so dumb. I want to ask you about Saquon Barkley because that popped up in the news today. I did a show on it a little bit earlier. We have talked about free agent running backs, and mainly due to the fact that they got to make a decision on DeAndre Swift. Do you keep him? Do you let him go? But there are some big names now with Barkley officially not being tagged to go along with Derrick Henry who are going to be on the free agent market. And I kind of did the whole, mental math on, okay, well, what would it cost to get Saquon Barkley today on the show? Because he had a $10 million franchise tag last year. Remember, he waited a little while to sign. He wasn't too happy with that. So he's clearly not going to get more than $10 million a year. I think we all, with the age he's getting closer to 30, a couple of injuries. But where's the number that you draw a line on paying a running back? Because they didn't pay Miles Sanders $6 million a year last season, and that turned out to be worked out pretty well. I mean, he basically got benched for Chuba Hubbard with the Carolina Panthers. Would you give Saquon 5? Would you pay him 6? Like, if Saquon was like, I want to be an Eagle, I want to play in this offense, I want to, be alongside Jalen Hurts with this read option, RPO, whatever you want to call it, I'll do it for 6. Would you sign Saquon Barkley for $6 million? And the same question you can go for Derrick Henry. $6 million for a free agent running back. What say you?
Yeah. That's tough. That's a good question. I probably would.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'd be Howie's not going to do. That's the thing. The hypothetical is yes, I would, but I'm still,
not at all, not a chance.
Like where else you're going to spend that money? I would love to see like, hey, what is my total cap space before 100% giving that answer. But yes, optically, just taking a look at it, this offense, you add in that acquisition there, for $6 million. I mean, heck, that's cheaper than Miles Sanders got out of a contract. So sure, let's we saw that what that was.
Eric Petro says Saquon 7, anyone else 4. Yeah, I think all 4 of the Eagle running backs that they signed before the start of this past season was combined to make $6 million a year. So with draft running backs too, you could just take anybody in round 2 if you really wanted a running back and most likely get a pretty good one. For me though, personally, I would take Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley. And it's mainly due to the fact that Henry's a little bit more durable, in my opinion. And I just like the idea of having more of a ground and pound running back. I really thought that they were going to use Swift a little bit more like that because he's a little bit more physical than Kenny Gainwell. Obviously, they underutilized him. I think Henry and Barkley are both hard to underutilize. Either would be fun, but I'm with you. It'd still be very, very tough for me to go anything over 6 just because we have other needs. If you could just go 4, and then give the rest for a linebacker or a safety. I think safety, side note, is going to be where they spend the big money. I think cornerback is hard to do because of the Bradbury contract. He's not going anywhere. They're going to have to either trot him out there or bench him and play Ringo, but it'll be Slay, Ringo, and Bradbury as your 3, Rodgers as your nickel, along with Maddox, whatever. Like, I like Jalen Johnson. He would be my number one choice. I think safety. I think they go for Antoine Winfield. Some of these other safeties are going to be available. That's where they spend their big ticket money. And then if they have some extra with a restructuring of a Hassan Reddick or, something else along those lines, then you start trickling down to linebacker, then pass rusher, then you get to kind of the running back, wide receiver 3 area if we're going, of most important.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. I think to the point of running back, I'm there with you. King Henry is that's why he's King Henry.
He's
but
crazy.
He's an anomaly because you look at how many carries he has, and every time I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to start slowing down. But he's got 2,000 carries, and Saquon Barkley's got 1,200 carries. But look at the durability. That's why. Like, one's been able to stay on the field a lot more often. He still had injuries, but don't get me wrong, he still had injuries. But being able to be out there taking the brute of it, week in and week out pretty much. So, but yeah, I think I agree with this offense. Certainly with Kellen Moore's scheme, you get a big physical, even more, not that Saquon can't be, but like a even more big physical running back like a Derrick Henry, and you're going to be under center more often. You're going to try to play action. You're looking to run that. I think it would be a good fit. Does it work out in Howie's world? Probably not, but I agree with you from that standpoint. And then go into the whole, safety question on the defensive side. Shout out to Chris too. I forgot this one earlier, but he said, I say we go through the growing pains with our defense, move Eli Ricks outside, move Bradbury to slot, keep Maddox and move him to safety, and have Blankenship come off the bench. So what? I don't know that
I was there for the start, and then you said Maddox at safety, and Maddox is like 2 feet tall. Like he's too small to be a safety. Too small. And you forgot about Isaiah Rodgers.
Right. I have an emotional investment in Avonte Maddox, as most people do, I'm sure, because like there's the tie of he's been here for. I feel like he's gone. You save what? I think $7 million is the savings if you cut him. So
it's a lot of money.
I think he's gone. He can't stay on the field. He's hurt all the time. So I agree though. I think if you go safety, it makes a whole lot of sense. It didn't work out with Byard. He's not coming back under the contract that you would keep him. So you're either totally restructuring that, or you're saying, well, sorry, we saw enough to know that you're not going to work. And I feel like with Fangio, he's going to try to go get somebody else. He may target someone else that he likes. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he says, hey, I like what I see somehow. But I feel like, yeah, I'm with you. You go with a safety, and then you see on corner. I don't know. There's possibility there.
I want to quickly show you. I was still having this up on the screen, but we moved over to defense. Here's your stat comparison between Barkley and Henry. Again, 2 very unlikely people that the Eagles are not going to throw money at. But if you're wondering, we're talking more attempts for King Henry. We're talking more rushing yards, more yards per attempt, more longer rushing yards, 1 less 20-plus yard, but double the amount of rushing touchdowns. Saquon gets him in the whole, catching out of the backfield. But overall, I'm definitely in the whole King Henry train over Saquon if we're getting crazier, which is never going to happen. I had a super chat come in from Brian Fleming. He says, Thomas, you're talking Game of Thrones, a wedding, Croatia. The Red Wedding was filmed in Dubrovnik. You're going to murder an entire army, bro. Okay, that's funny. For those wondering, yes, my honeymoon is obviously after my wedding. We are going to Croatia. Kind of a quick fun story. I'm big into the whole credit card points to go, fly places for free or for very cheap. And so we got round trip, first class, lie flat flights for, I think it was like $400 total round trip with our points. So we basically fly into Germany, and then we're going to just pop over to Croatia and do the whole beaches and stuff over there. So yes, long story short, that's where we're going for the honeymoon. So it's going to be very fun. Very fun.
That is the way to do it. Anyone who's done it, first class, laying flat.
Have you done it?
Yes. Yeah. We did it to Hawaii. We did it to Hawaii once. And once you do it once, you will never go back. You'll be like, why did we not fly for the long flights anyway? Shorter flights, no way. There's no way I'm not going to pay that. But yeah, you get a deal on it like that, for sure. You got to take advantage.
There you go. Yep. I appreciate the super chat there, Brian. That's beginning of May. So I purposely planned the wedding to be after the NFL draft, because if it was going to be the week of the NFL draft, then I'd just be single. So it wouldn't be possible. So made sure we got that. We got that down, and it should be just fine.
Priorities. Good thing she was okay with the date.
She's
That's
very
very,
understanding.
very important.
Very
So,
understanding. The draft is
yeah.
very, very important. Can we please sign Swift? No injury concerns. Character is good too, says Theodore Boyd. Listen, I think that is fine. I have nothing against Swift. I think he's great. I said on my show today, underutilized. I just don't know if the Eagles, they just don't really do that. I mean, when was the last running back they gave a second contract to that wasn't Kenny Gainwell or Boston Scott? I mean, it feels like forever where they would just kind of
Shady.
go through, shady, right? And then they traded him away. Thank you, for Kiko Alonso. Thanks, Chip. But yeah, it's been a very, very long time. So I just would be very surprised. But would he do it for $3 or $4 million? Probably. But honestly, if you're DeAndre Swift and you watched the offense last season and you saw how underutilized it was, and then Kellen Moore is coming in, who is more of a pass-heavy OC, would you take the same amount of money to go to a more run-heavy system? I would have considered it if I was him.
Maybe. It'd be interesting because I would be so curious to know like the mindset if or how it's changed with running backs. Maybe it hasn't at all.
Yeah.
But like in this day and age of NFL where running backs do not get paid money and they are
At all.
very much taken advantage of for how often that they're used.
Right.
It's not the worst thing in my mind. This is probably totally, so I'm just kind of spitballing hypothetical. I know from a competitive standpoint, from like, I'm going to, go out there and dominate, it doesn't even compute. But I'm just saying, like, if you're thinking to yourself, how many times you're going to have to tote the rock to get whatever X amount of millions of dollars versus, okay, hey, an offense that like still can take advantage of me at times, but not like over usage or wear and tear like crazy. I mean, if it's similar based on the payment, then the cost per carry is down, I suppose, in terms of one of those. So I don't know. Maybe he looks at it that way. I feel like not. He's probably like every single athlete out there is like, no, I want to get my touches, get my carries, everything else. But hey, running backs' careers, I mean, we know they're so much shortened now, and you got to go get money wherever you can. So I feel like, does Howie change things up? I know the argument could be made, like, yes, we haven't extended a running back, but if you go back and look, have we had a like serious, legit runner that you go like, oh, we should certainly extend him?
A lot of people wanted Miles, but
Miles.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, Miles wasn't like the greatest. He wasn't a top 5 back in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
And we didn't go out after that season and say, oh, Miles was underutilized. Like,
yeah,
I think we all looked at it and go like, Miles did pretty good. He did very good, but this offense looked like you could put anyone behind that offensive line and they would do pretty solid. Maybe not quite to his extent. And then you see him leave. So I don't know. It'd be curious to see what the market rate will be. I don't think that it's going to be like a total disregard of how he just go in there and be like, good luck. Hey, sorry, we'll see you. Like, we're not going to re-sign you. But I feel like it'll be, hey, you can go explore, see what you might get offered, and then just give us the last right of refusal. Like if we want to match it or if we want to just say, hey, sorry, we're not going to do that. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yep. Nope. I think that makes perfect sense. We just had a question. I'm trying to see which one it was. What 3 positions? This is Michael Dujan. What 3 positions would you guys draft in the first 3 picks? Obviously, 1 first rounder, 2 second rounders. It'll depend on free agency, right? You get a corner in free agency, get a safety in free agency, then it changes a little bit there. Is this what we want to do or what we think is going to happen? Because my guess is they'll go pass rusher in the 20s. Maybe they trade up if they like a guy. And then in the second round, I would think they could go linebacker and either safety or corner. That would be my guess. The first 3 picks should be linebacker, though. Unless they really feel like they have to get the Lane Johnson replacement right away, then maybe that's the pick. If they're really worried that Lane Johnson is going to be gone in 2025 and they want to have someone to sit behind him and kind of learn the role. But that changes if Kelce comes back, and we haven't mentioned that yet tonight. I mean, we keep hearing that he's coming back. If Kelce comes back, Juergens stays at right guard, and that basically means that Tyler Steen can be the backup if he needs to be at right tackle, because he'll have a second year underneath him. He was supposed to come in and be a right tackle, but then he was switched to guard and so on and so forth. So it changes depending on what Kelce wants to do. By the way, on the Kelce thing, to me it sounds like he has got to convince his family. Like his answer at the Pro Bowl was, I'm going to try to, I got to convince Kylie, which, you have a wife, I have a fiance, it makes perfect sense. You got to convince them that he can play. My guess is the family is like, you should probably hang it up, and he wants to do it, but he knows his body's probably lacking a little bit, and that's where the decision will probably come from. That's why he hasn't made a decision yet. So
I could see that, because he definitely had. I mean, it feels like he's just leaning more into Like, yeah, you mentioned the I'm going to try to, and Travis at the Super Bowl even. It's like
Yes,
they've clearly talked. It's like, hey,
they
bro, how you
have.
feel? He was like, I feel like he's got more football if he wants it, but that's the
Right.
question: does he want it, and to what extent? And
Yeah.
even Kylie's interview, I forgot who it was with, but Kylie got interviewed, and she said, I feel like he'll be successful in whatever he does. But I don't know if that was more of a like he should quit and he'll be successful in whatever he
Right.
does, or like he
TV,
could still play
podcasts.
one more year and he's going to be successful. So hopefully it's he can get one more year in. That's what we would like to see. But I don't know. It does. It's one of those we'll eventually get the behind the scenes, right? Because the
Of course.
documentary, I'm sure they're gonna have the part 2 and all that. But I would love to know how I don't know. I guess where he's leaning, because we get all these hints, but still, it could totally be just him saying stuff that means more
Hmm.
so like, yeah, well, I'm not really. I would love to, but not. I'm not exactly leaning into that. So
Hmm.
who knows? But I agree. Is going back to the question of the draft and positional. I'm with you in terms of it's got to be defense first. Like if we don't select a defensive player in the first round, for sure, first round, like
For sure.
what are we doing? There's unless I don't know what it would take, unless some crazy player falls so far where it's like you just can't pass him up. You got
Right.
to take it off. But even then, I'm like,
Yeah.
what
What do you want? A
position do we need? Where are
receiver?
you
Wide
going with?
receiver
Yeah,
3?
they're
Yeah.
not going to make a huge impact. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you got to go defense and then figure it out from there. But I think I'm also right with you. If you get a linebacker, I don't know if Howie would in second round, but yeah, linebacker, corner. We could see on safety, and we had let's see, we had a comment here that I was going to see earlier. It was where was that? Yeah, Eric Lovely says, doesn't the Fangio D need fast and smart safeties? And absolutely they do. Safeties and linebackers. That is the premier positions for a Fangio defense. So like we've been talking about, like is Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham your starters? Does that make you feel great? Does Reed Blankenship and name your other safety make you feel great? Like, and I don't think it's Kevin Byard like we were talking about. So yeah, from a mixture of free agency and the draft, I think you got to get those positions solidified.
No, listen, I totally agree. Quickly on the Kelce thing, I saw a comment here. I forget who that was. Let me see if I can pull it up. Tracy Ann said Kelce waited until right before free agency before he announced. That's true. And he was hinting that he wasn't going to come back. And even his, official, what was it, announcement basically said, oh, I after careful consideration, we all thought that he was going to leave, and then he didn't. So that is very true. The other question, or the other thing I wanted to go ahead and point out here is free agent safeties. People were asking about safeties here. If I can get it published on the screen. There we go. So here are your best free agent safeties according to the Pro Football Network. Antoine Winfield is far and away number one. Was he the one who wasn't a Pro Bowler but wasn't all pro with the Bucs this year? He got totally screwed there. I think Xavier McKinney makes a ton of sense from the Giants, but you also got to throw in a Julian Blackmon and Kyle Duggar. I mean, all of these guys would be an upgrade over what Philadelphia has right now, but if they were going to go big fish hunting, and then Antoine Winfield is the big fish that you go get, and he instantly comes in and is that Malcolm Jenkins, not really a Brian Dawkins mold, but he's very similar in terms of being a leader of the defense and being a really, really good grab.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's one of those that I think it is a given. I did double check too. It sounded right, but yes, Antoine was the one that was. I don't know how you get all pro
I don't
and you
either.
don't get the pro. I
All
know
pro
it's like
was
a popularity
harder, right?
sometimes for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. But it's one of those where it feels almost like a given. If you get the all pro, it feels like you should just naturally be
Yeah.
vaulted into that spot. But hey, yeah, he's great. He's phenomenal. You don't have to have a Pro Bowl, I guess, to solidify that. People know it who watched
Sure.
us, play them in 2 games. But yeah, you get a free agent like that, safety that can come into play and really, I don't know, really help solidify. But I guess the other question too is like, let's say, because I don't think that Byard, and it feels like most comments, I know some people are saying, hey, let's give Byard another shot, but it feels like most people are on the board of like, okay, Byard didn't play great. We don't need
Right.
him, cut him, save cap, whatever. So you say you do that, right? And let's say you even get an Antoine Winfield, right? Is Reed Blankenship a starter to you? Do you feel like he deserves to? He was kind of up and down. Do you feel like he deserves to get the other starter spot, or are
Yeah.
you drafting or signing
I
someone
mean,
else more?
it's tough because Sidney Brown was supposed to be Like, you could make the argument Sidney Brown could beat him out in training camp if he didn't have an ACL tear in the
Fair.
final game of the year, right? Like, that's the whole problem. So drafting somebody is a little dramatic because you're basically giving up on a third-round draft pick in Sidney Brown. I think Reed's played well enough. I think that he had more splash plays, was more of a sure tackler than Kevin Byard. Byard's whole problem was, minus the pick in the end zone against Mahomes in the Chiefs game, name a big play he made. He didn't make any. Like, there was nothing that Kevin Byard did at all. And so I just... I get people saying, well, bring him back for one more year. You'd have to restructure his deal if you did that. You'd have to take a major pay cut in order to do that because his money is just insane. There's a reason Tennessee traded him at the trade deadline, which, in hindsight's 2020. But, yeah, I think if you got
we owe
Winfield...
them for AJ, so...
Of course. Yeah, really. I think if you had a Winfield or McKinney, right, you get one of those top safeties in free agency, you would be okay with having Reed being the other safety as long as you made sure your cornerback spot was pretty shored up, right? As long as you felt good. And listen, if Isaiah Rodgers balls out as a nickel and Bradbury has a normal Bradbury year, because again, last year was the outlier. He was awful last year. I mean, he was horrific last year, but historically, he's been a really good cornerback. Slay's healthy. You can be a lot better just based off of that one move, but you're going to need to make sure that you have other moves at linebacker. And honestly, I keep looking at this free agent pass rusher list. I don't know if you can see my screen here. I mean, one, there's some really good free agent linebackers. Patrick Queen is like unbelievable. Azeez Al-Shire's pretty good too. Devin White. There are some good linebackers there. But when I look at these free agent pass rushers, Josh Allen's probably going to stay with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Be surprised if they don't bring him back. No one else on this list is going to go back to where they came from, it seems like, right? I mean, Brian Burns is going to for sure go somewhere else. Chase Young, they're not going to be able to afford him in San Francisco. Danielle Hunter is probably tired of being with Minnesota. They talked about trading him during the trade deadline. Clowney's gone. Van Ginkel, maybe an option for Philadelphia just because he comes from the Miami Dolphins. Epinesa, maybe. Like most of these guys, Uche from the Patriots. I mean, 90% of these guys are going to hit the open market and not be re-signed. For a team that was just completely pass rush, irrelevant last season, weren't able to get sacks at all. You wouldn't shock me, especially if they were to get a retirement from a Fletcher Cox or whatever, to go out and get a pass rusher as well. We don't talk about that a lot because they technically have pass rushers, Nolan Smith year 2, whatever. But I keep looking at that free agent pass rusher list and kind of go, $9 million a year for one of these guys. Get him in the rotation, just because. Josh Sweat and Reddick were so hit or miss. They either existed, as they did early on, or they didn't exist at all in that playoff game in the final, 7-game stretch of the season. They did nothing. So I don't think you can rely on either of them, much like you can't rely on Cunningham and Dean to be your starting linebackers because they showed you that there's some concerns there and there's some lack of consistency.
Yeah, I agree with some of that. I disagree a little, though, with I think there's some with the coaching, right? And I think that we would all agree with that. But still, it's like Tracy Ann made a pretty good point here. I don't necessarily agree as much with the Byard, but she said Byard got worse the longer he was here. I'm wondering if the DC carousel messed him up. Probably
Maybe.
Some, but I will say to the defensive line, I think it played more of a toll or more of a factor than what they would admit themselves. They kind of hinted at it, but like they would actually publicly admit, because the percentage of snaps that they were playing were career highs. They're just always out there. And you can only ask so much of your guys, especially whenever the previous season and what the expectation was, you're going to get more of a rotation. So I don't disagree. Like, I think you should add some depth to the D-line and have some other players there. From the interior, it's interesting because it's like, you go into the year and you think, okay, it's going to be Jalen Carter who's starting. It's going to be Jordan Davis who's starting, most likely. And then you've got a Milton Williams. Moro Ajomo is on the come up. Like, a lot of people have been talking about him as far as Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens in practice, saying this dude, like, watch out. He gives people, headaches in practices. So, hey, maybe you get something there. You're still going to draft, sure, or maybe even free agency. But I think you've got a decent amount of pieces there on the rotation. Then you look at the edges, like you mentioned. I think Sweat and Reddick can be solid. They can be back to hopefully what you expected from them, but you have to have that second bit of rotation to help them out. And that's kind of the question is, okay, who is that? Who are the secondary guys that are coming in? I think those two will start. I don't think that you'll have an overhaul of, oh, hey, we got, some random dude who's coming in here now and starting. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like to me, it'd be like, okay, it's still going to be Hassan. It's still going to be Sweat. But then I love Nolan. You know that I love Nolan. Yeah. I don't know that he's going to be, hopefully he can develop another pass rush move. He can get something there. He's got to get some size. The shoulder scares me to death. Every time he gives even a decent blow, he comes off to the sidelines holding it. Like, that scares me.
Yes.
BG's only here for one season. Like, you can't long-term go, yeah, cool, that's an answer. And even for one year, if you bring him back on a team-friendly deal, because he probably wants to, he wants to farewell tour, it's not the answer. So on one side, I say, well, I think it's going to be Hassan Reddick and it's going to be Sweat, but you still do need the depth there. And maybe it's a semi-big signing from free agency, or you get someone in the draft. And it wouldn't surprise, because, we all know how he's loving the trenches. And if you go to 22 and someone's there or someone later, then maybe he goes and gets it. But yeah, I think that I'm not totally ready to count them out as far as, especially Sweat, because I think Sweat gets more. I think he gets more hate than possibly deserves.
It's fair.
I understand like the whole 6.5 sacks,
Sure.
but he honestly, if you look at it, like, he played against a lot tougher competition than Reddick did. I'm not discrediting the whole 10+ sacks for Reddick, but if you look at right tackle versus left tackle and the dudes that Sweat was going up against, I don't know what the numbers may have still been about the same if you swap sides. And I know it's different when you're going from but I'm just saying, objectively speaking, if you look at the talent they were going up against, it was harder. And, Sweat did pretty good until he hit his own, not rookie wall, but, he hit a wall of sorts and he just couldn't do anything after that.
But as you mentioned, they all hit a wall, and there was a defensive change, and we got very little whispers that the defensive change really screwed this team up. Like, it was a really, really bad move, even though Sean Desai had lost the locker room, and seemingly from what, people had kind of been mumbling there. So maybe, again, makes a difference. We got to remember, when before the Patricia move, they beat the Dolphins offense, they beat the Chiefs offense, they beat the Bills offense, like they beat the Cowboys offense. Never really pretty. Still, though, they did do some good things. It was interesting. Let's see here. I'm seeing a lot of people saying
game sealing, or, well, not game sealing because they still had one chance, but Sweat had a really good sack at the very end of the game to be able to, because we were having a heart attack in the middle of that in Philly, the game in Philly. But it's like they're marching down the field, people are dying practically. You had Slay going down, Bradbury going down. I was like, what the heck is happening? And then all of a sudden, Sweat gets the sack, and he's doing his celebration, everyone flying back. But that was big time, because that saved took off a lot of time. So I think, again, depth wise, Zach here says agree with Josh in the depth conversation, solid piece for the rotation. But it's who else are you going to get? Because I don't know.
And that's the Reddick argument, but also the Reddick problem. Reddick is going to have a very interesting discussion for his contract, right? If he wants top 3 pass rusher money, you're going to have to walk. They just won't be able to afford him and anybody else. I mean, there's just no way. But if he wants to be the 10th highest paid pass rusher, the 8th highest paid pass rusher, make it kind of a team-friendly deal. He didn't have the season where he can waltz in there with 17.5 sacks and say, make me the highest paid pass rusher, even though he's done, double-digit sacks his entire career. But I do think that he's going to be it'd be very interesting to see what he wants to do, right? Does he want to be an Eagle, or does he want to go somewhere else? It's similar to what C.J. Gardner-Johnson did, just less drama, right? C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you want to be an Eagle, here's what we can offer you to stay an Eagle. And he said, no, I don't want to be an Eagle, and then made a big, brouhaha about it, and basically got the same deal with the Lions, and it was pretty good. He wasn't great this year. Injuries probably, derailed that a little bit. But still,
Sure.
You have the same situation. He's going to be our version of C.J. Gardner-Johnson as Reddick this year, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly what he's going to take once the new league year starts. Which, again, I know that we're – go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, how much do you think that they would pay him if you were just speculating? Because, because what? There's I was trying to look this up earlier.
I have it right here. I got it.
I was going to say –
34, TJ Watt 28. See, this is crazy money. Joey is sitting there at 27. Myles Garrett is 25, right? Montez Sweat got that brand new deal at 24.5. So if you are Hassan Reddick, you take this and you go, my numbers are similar to everybody in the top 10 here. I'm worth more than Bradley Chubb, and I'm probably worth more than Khalil Mack. And Chubb is sitting there at 22, and Mack is at 23. I think Max Crosby's better. Max Crosby needs a new deal, whatever. He's not better than Nick Bosa. He's not better than TJ Watt. He's not better than Myles Garrett. Those are all facts. Now, Joey Bosa is a little different, often injured, but sure. If he wants $26 million, $25 million a year, you can't afford him. Like, you just can't afford Reddick on a 3-year, $25 million deal. This money has to be 20, a little bit less than 20. I mean, Trey Henderson's at 21. I don't know. It gets very interesting. I mean, Danielle Hunter's at 17. He's going to get a new deal. Shaq Barrett's at 17. Reddick's at 15 right now. So it's got to be more than 15. Listen, no
deal.
one talks about this. It's going to be really, really hard to keep him if he wants anything north of $24 million. Very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
It makes you look at it though and go, that is an incredible deal.
Incredible deal.
That Howie got.
Incredible
just to be able to pull that off and the amount of production that he's gotten you. I could see there's a way to make it. It'd be tough. I could see it though being like, looking at that chart, like a 20-ish, 21 million, even like a Trey Hendrickson.
Sure.
And then Howie, again, it would be somewhat of a, in the future, you're going to have to pay for it. But if he backloads it, then maybe, you have it for 3 to 4 years. You give yourself a window of those 3-ish years before you're really going to have to start, significantly feeling it. But, just looking at it, that's a difficult position to be in. Ridge King here says Hassan gets 3 years, 30 million. If he wants to, he's just loving Philly, loving being the hometown and give us a discount. Sure. That'd be phenomenal. But it's more like a, one year. It's closer to 1 year for 30 than 3 years for 30. You'd be closer to that range.
Yeah. No, it's 100% true. I mean, the problem is that Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, and Myles Garrett all exist, and they all got. I mean, Nick Bosa's deal is just insane. How much money he got? $34 million. That used to be quarterback money, and now, of course, it's changed because of everything getting reset. But that used to be quarterback money, and that's pretty wild. But that's the beauty of free agency. Like there are going to be a lot of moves. The good news this year is that the Eagles' free agents are all old or people you don't want to keep anyway. There isn't really a name where you go, we got to re-sign him. Like, we got to keep him. Whereas last year it was like Slay was a free agent and Bradbury was a free agent and Gardner Johnson was a free agent. Like everybody was a free agent. Now it's a little bit different. So, I mean, TJ Edwards was a free agent last year as well, which was a bummer. As Real MVP just said, we should have re-signed CJ and kept TJ. Yep, we know. They didn't do that. It's a bummer. That's what happens.
Signed our old corners.
Yeah, Bradbury. Thank goodness. Slick says, thoughts about signing Deshaun Elliott from Miami. Anybody from Miami and anybody from Denver are going to be very much free game. If they have been a part of a Fangio system or roster, they are going to be very much free game. He's going to get somebody from those two rosters, for sure. Van Ginkel is a name Josh mentioned on his show a couple days ago that I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it's one of those that he tried to get him to, or he did successfully, but for those that hadn't seen it or hadn't looked into it, but Van Ginkel was possibly going to go to New England, going to go to Las Vegas. And, he lured him in a way. Maybe, I don't know, because there's no speculation of like how much did he actually have a say, but he could have gotten a bigger deal if he'd gone to one of those two and decided to take a 1-year contract in Miami. So it's saying something. There's there enough to get Van Ginkel to say like, yeah, let's leave Miami and come to Philly. Possibly, hey, you're familiar with the system. You're very successful. And if you get a long-term contract, that's, what you're eyeing or looking at, I would think that you're going to have some similar interests. Now the coaching staffs have changed. So maybe not, it depends. But I was going to say, if you had interest from New England, you had interest from Las Vegas, you might get similar. New England knows him very well because they see him twice a year. So that feels like you might get a similar interest, even though the coaching staff has turned over quite a bit. But yeah, that's one of those out there that he can be kind of that hybrid. It would be interesting because he is a bigger linebacker. And if you have the possibility of playing him at times off the ball, sometimes in the pass rush, providing some of that depth too. We talk about, even if you're going to start, let's say you do have Hassan Reddick and Sweat as the starters, he can still kind of rotate and be in that, interesting blend. So I don't know. That's one name to keep an eye on. And Deshaun Elliott as well. Like you mentioned, there's several names. I think Josie Jewell from Denver, even. Isn't he a free agent?
I like Josie Jewell. Anytime you watch Denver on the Red Zone channel, the guy was always around the football. I mean, always around the football making tackles. There's also a guy for the Raiders, I forget. He might be a free agent too, who was just always around the ball. You're like, who is this guy? And Jewell was it for Denver. And I was like, man, circle, because he's one of those cheaper options that could make some sense in a Fangio scheme, and obviously has been around Fangio too during his time. I believe that they overlap whenever they were in Denver. Let's see. Zach's gonna get cut or traded for a player swap. Is that Cunningham? Is that Cunningham? I'm not sure.
I would assume so. That'd be. I'm gonna guess that's. I don't know who else that would be, but
I don't know if he's gonna get traded.
Yeah. He did good. He did fine. I don't even know if you would say he did good. He did fine, but does any team look at that for the amount that he was getting? I mean, heck, he stayed on stayed available, to any team for so long. I don't think that a team goes back and, well, hey, maybe we'll trade for him at this point. I couldn't really see that.
Let's see here. Oh, Zach McPherson is who Andrew. We forgot about Zach McPherson. Forgot that he was supposed to be, coming into his own out of Tech, and then he never actually was able to go ahead and do that. Gotta get rid of Bradbury somehow. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get rid of James Bradbury. I think it's $17 million in dead cap space if you were to get rid of him in any capacity. I think a more likely scenario is that you place nickel. And the problem is that he wasn't really training to be a nickel this year, and then suddenly he had to be a nickel, and he was thrust into the nickel at times. He had to play outside as well. It just didn't make a lot of sense from a Matt Patricia, Sean Desai scheme because they're trash anyway. But I think that's your hope. Your hope is that Bradbury had his anomaly year. He had that one year that everybody, or at least quarterbacks tend to have. They had that one bad year. But he was cornerback, and he's a terrible season. If he can go back to being 2022 Bradbury, where he was, fantastic. He was really good just, a year and a half ago, then you're going to be okay. But cutting him and eating $17 million in dead cap money is virtually impossible. It's just not possible at all. So I'd be very surprised if that were actually to be able to happen.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I was trying to find this. I thought I saw someone saying that it's basically there's a way to cut him. I would have to.
Is there?
To find this. I felt like there was a way to cut him where it's post June 1.
Yeah, but isn't it still a lot? I thought it was still a lot.
I think it's
$13 million.
Is it really that much? I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. For some reason in my mind, I was thinking there's like a post June 1st, and it was like I want to say like a $4 or $5 million. So then someone was like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to pay $5 million to not have him on your team, or do you want to cut him and say, well, okay, we'll take the $5 million just to have an open roster spot? I could be wrong. I could be making that up. I'm trying to find that now because I thought it was better than what I initially was interpreting. Let me see if I can find that. I don't want to make this up here, but because if you could do it for that price, I think you might be like, well, okay, it's not that might make some sense.
Yeah. Let's go to a couple more questions here, and then we're going to wrap things up. We're approaching the hour, and Josh still has is it a 3-week-year-old? Is that what baby Charlotte is?
We're at 3 weeks.
How about that? Yep. You've survived. How about that? Gotta like that. Made it to 3 weeks.
Close-ish.
Very close to a month. There. Reddick and Sweat were getting enough rest throughout the season. Came a little bit earlier, possibly. I do think that's a little bit on Nolan Smith because they drafted him to kind of be him and BG were really supposed to be that second punch. And towards the end of the season, they just weren't producing at all. BG was, but no one wasn't, and so they had to play Sweat and Reddick a little bit more, which makes some sense. But they definitely did not. Jason Guadalupe says it's $12 million to cut him post June 1st. That's more what I thought it was.
I may be thinking of some other player,
which is better than 17. But
true, but that's still
a lot of money. So it's going to be interesting. Very, very interesting. Yep. Okay, let's do Super Bowl prediction. Give me your Super Bowl prediction before we wrap things up here. What do you think? I know we don't care meteor with everyone surviving, but what's the score? Give me the score.
It's I feel like it's going to be a lower scoring one. Okay. So I first off I'll say that. Okay. And I'm going to go with a I really don't want this to happen, but I just feel like
Niners. You're going Niners, aren't you?
It's gonna. I'm gonna say Niners 24-21.
Yuck.
I'm just.
Man.
Yeah. I hope that's not right, but
I'll go Chiefs 24-17. I agree. I don't think you're getting a shootout. I think the Chiefs defense is way too good, and I think that Mahomes and the Chiefs offense hasn't been as good as they've been the past couple of years, and so they still win, but. Brock Purdy's entire career, it feels like, is going to come down to this game because there's the whole debate: is he good? Is he bad? Is he good? Is he bad? Is he carried? Is he actually good? I don't know. He wins the Super Bowl. They got to keep him. They got to sign him. All this stuff has to go and happen. He loses this one, then Shanahan has shown you in the past he's not comfortable sitting on a quarterback who's lost the Super Bowl in Garoppolo. What do you do with Purdy there? That's to me the real storyline here.
Yeah, it's the same thing because you're also trying to. The goal is take advantage of, obviously a quarterback that you're not having to pay, and certainly from a Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy. But it's like, you might have some questions. It's like, okay, hey, can you actually get this to work? And like you said, it's a knock on Shanahan. He can get close, but is that the right guy? Is Purdy the right quarterback in that situation? I don't know. I hope that I'm wrong on that prediction. I will say that. And the other thing that I would. Maybe the counter argument to the Niners that I keep telling myself, I was like, okay, maybe this is not true that the Niners will lose is like the Niners have struggled. They have looked like they should have lost to the Packers. They look like they should have lost to the Lions. So they could very well go out there. Whereas the Chiefs, to me, it's been a little bit up and down, but look at the road that they've had, just the toughness that they have, been able to build up to this point. You play in -30 weather against the Dolphins, and then you go to Buffalo and you win in that contest, and then you go to Baltimore. Like, it's an incredible road to get there. So maybe they're more battle tested, and I guess I could see it either side. I just for some reason the rematch from a couple years ago, you got to me, it's a little bit odd. I guess you could look at it from the players on there, but a little bit odd that the Niners are favored. So that to me also was like, I don't know. It just makes me feel like the Niners are going to win it. But again, I hope I'm wrong.
What's going to be the what's your favorite Usher song? Because Usher, come on, that's like us in middle school and high school, right? What's the favorite Usher song? Without googling, googling.
That's I don't know. That's I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm terrible at songs to begin with, but I don't listen to a whole lot of Usher. So I would say, but that's everyone's. That's
pretty good one.
Immediate.
Pretty good one. I mean, I like More. More's pretty good, but again, these one word songs.
Yeah,
I think we see Luda and Lil Jon. I think those are your guest appearances as Luda and Lil Jon. Because Lil Jon's has been in like all of his songs or something crazy like that. So,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. All right. We appreciate you guys watching the Wednesday Link here on a Wednesday night. We'll be back next Wednesday to recap the Super Bowl and obviously talk more about the Eagles because as soon as February ends, new league year begins. And if a draft gets started in April, it's going to be a wild ride. Josh's show comes out tonight. If you didn't miss mine, it's already posted to my channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
See you. Go Birds.